Hello, I'm Alexis Michelle.
And I'm Kieron Cole, and welcome to another edition of Mix Selection. Today, this evening, Alexis and I are talking about a subject called deal breakers. Watch it now. Have you ever had a deal go by? Maybe you did a real estate deal, a car deal, whatever the case is, and it didn't turn out the way you need to. There was just one thing in the caveat, one clause that just didn't make the whole deal come together, and you knew it was best at that moment for you to walk away, right? Well, what about relationships? Today we're talking about deal breakers for relationships. Lex, you gonna take us in?
No, I'm gonna let you go in and punch it.
See, that could have been a deal breaker right there.
You wanna punch that out right there?
In our last segment, we spoke about counting the cost and being honest with oneself about what it takes or what I'm going to have to give up or adjust to be in a certain relationship with a certain individual. And what do you do when you get to the point that you've done all the math and the 1 + 1 really is not adding up to 2, and you realize that, I can't do this, or I don't want to do this, I'm not willing to do this. I think one of the first things really just in having this dialogue lesson to be realized is if you're honest with yourself that it's a price that's too expensive or a price you don't want to pay, it's okay if you don't want to pay.
Right, and it's fine.
It's okay to say, listen, you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. We can be friends, we can be cool,
right.
But when I really sit down and look at all of it for me, it's probably not the best decision.
Not the way to the kingdom.
And I think it's better that we have those conversations up front
right.
than get people emotionally tied into each other, and all of a sudden
I realize that, oh my God, this is not something that I want.
Oh.
And realizing that when you sit down to this individual, and it could be something as shallow, you don't like the way they hold their fork, you work in corporate America, you go to galas, you go to these things, and maybe that's just not something that the person that you want going with you. They don't know how to hold his fork cut. I mean, I was a long time ago, a very long time ago, I was much, much younger. Young man was interested in me, and we went to go eat, and he was holding the knife, and I was just like...
That was a deal breaker?
I was like, it ain't gonna happen.
You're like, eat out too much.
That's not gonna happen. And so, but of course, I mean, I'm young, whatever, but for me, I just wasn't gonna be able to do that.
But it reminded me of another story too. A young lady that was interested in me some years back, and the first thing she asked me, she met me out in the spot, I was with the jeans, I literally had my hat turned back a little bit. First thing she said to me, do you own a suit? That's a real story. And so I had to guess I do. I work in court. I got suits.
Right.
But again, these are the things that if you really be honest with yourself, you have to understand what they are. Because you said something, you wake up like, whoa, I shouldn't have done this. But it's one thing to wake up 6 months from now and realize you shouldn't have done it, or a year. But what happens when you've been doing it for 10 years and you realize, wow, you know what? This was a deal breaker, but way back then. And I'll use my mom and dad for the example. My mother has never smoked in her life. My dad has never stopped smoking in his life. And I know that's always been a problem for my mother. In hindsight, as I think if she had to go back and do it again, as she's evolved to you, she probably wouldn't do it. Not because my dad wasn't a great guy or anything else like that. The reality is that was a real issue for her. And then she actually ended up developing allergies in later years. So, I mean, it became a real issue. So I think we have it could be something as insignificant as that. We have to be understanding that certain things are going to be a deal breaker. You know what? Listen, I love you, and I love your kids. I don't like your baby mama, and I know if I'm going to be with you, I'm going to be with her or your baby daddy.
Right.
And you know what? It can't happen.
Right.
And some people make it work well, but it may not be for everybody. You have to understand, for me, that's a deal breaker. Or for me, this is a deal breaker. Some people, they're like lying. There are some people, I know some people that, listen, you can lie about, listen, is it rain or the sunshine? Something as small as that. And like, listen, you know what? Because if you lie to me about something small, you lie to me about something big.
Right.
That's a deal breaker. And I think, and it's okay to be honest with deal breakers. When you say, you know what? And I don't know, some people may give that person the benefit of the doubt and say, listen, I'll give you an option again. But as soon as you see that behavior again, then you go back into this place. And I think it's really that you have to know what a deal breaker is for you. Like for me, I understand too, for Lex and I, it's like, I don't hang out. I'm not the type of guy that runs the street. I don't come in 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. That's not who I am. That would probably be...
That would be a problem.
That would be a deal breaker.
That'd be a problem.
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 You see, but again, not like 10 years ago, that would
have been a problem.
Exactly. But again, those are the deal breakers, and vice versa, because I know she don't ever think she's coming up in my house at 3 o'clock. It'll be a problem. And again, but again, And sometimes, is it fair to say though, Lex, that sometimes you don't know the issues exist until they exist?
Right, until they exist because something maybe hasn't come up, and sometimes some things haven't come up until after you got married, you know, and then sometimes some things come up and we want to be in denial about it. And so we get real creative and make excuses and not understanding that this is really a deal breaker, but I'm going to still move forward, or I'm going to try to make this change, or hopefully this person will change, and not realizing this behavior is consistent and you know who you are, and that's not something you really want to entertain, and it is truly a deal breaker.
So what do you do when you, like, especially, let's say somebody's been dating 3, 4, 5 years, or somebody's been married 10 years, and you realize, wow, because guess what? There may be some things that the person wasn't even doing, right? And picked up a new habit or knew something else that is a real deal breaker for you. How do you tell? Because now I'm already pot committed. How do you deal with those deal breakers?
Well, to a degree, it's a case by case scenario. You know, from a marital place, you know, I would recommend them really trying to work it out. Like, you know what? Just depending on what that habit is. Now, if you won't crack, you weren't doing that before. You know,
it happens.
You know what?
It happens.
Yeah, bye-bye. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. You know, so all the stuff, you know, I got to hide everything. You know, I don't know about that right there. I mean, even if that means like a separation, you know, and if that person is willing to go to get some help, you know, and try to recover and that kind of thing like that. And so I think it's a case by case scenario. So I don't think that there's like this one answer, but from a marital place, for the most part, I would say go get counseling. I would say try to get some help to kind of maneuver, to kind of see, okay, why did this person start doing that? Where did this behavior come from? Maybe something triggered. Maybe they're in transitional years. And so maybe they're moving from that 40 to that 50 thing. And they don't really know how to transition well. I mean, you have men, midlife crisis. You know, women, you know what, she's not as fine and, you know, cute as she used to be when she was 20. So that may be something that she's struggling with. So she may pick up another behavior. You know, so from a marital place, I would say, you know what, try to go get counseling or try to see, you know, where these behaviors coming from. You know, and if it's somebody who's not married and they've been together, I would probably suggest still counseling to kind of see, you know, where it is. But at the end of the day, it's still a case by case scenario. And I think the two individuals ultimately need to come together to find out what is the best scenario for them. Because if you have like finances that's enmeshed together and certain real estate, that's just not something you really can just kind of, you know what, just walk away from.
Understood. I think quality time is important.
I couldn't do it.
I think quality time in relationship is very important. It's very, very much needed for healthy relationship. And I think when you go back to our last session about counting the cost, that's something people don't really focus on. Again, when you have people now, you have blended families, you have blended careers, you have all these things coming together. And if you're not intentional about making that quality time, it won't keep relationships healthy. And you know, it's like this. I remember there was a time in my life where everything I did with my dudes. I mean, I got 10, 15 dudes around me wherever I went. But as I grew, when I started to mature, I realized, especially if I want to be in a healthy relationship, that guess what? I had to separate myself. Not entirely, but I had to realize, okay, that's not the priority in my life anymore. And I mean, honestly and truly, you know, I shouldn't say that, but I'm going to say, ladies, if he's 40 years old plus and he still running the street for his dudes, you might need to recount your costs. I'm saying, that one's for free. Don't cost you nothing, really. If a grown man still do, that might be a deal breaker.
I think a grown woman still kind of doing like immature things and being really childlike, and you see these behaviors, I think you need to keep it moving, son. Like, just don't collect the $200, don't pass go, don't do nothing. Just let that go and just move on with your life.
You know what would be a deal breaker for me?
What?
If I was still dating, and the first time I saw a chick, my chick I'm interested in, take a picture with her lips poked out, I'm done. Yeah, that right there, I'm done. I don't even understand that madness.
I put it up on Facebook.
I'd be
Instagram.
done. That's a deal breaker. Like,
you don't like that? You don't like that?
No, I do not. That is just.
Is that childlike or whatever? I'm gonna take a picture. No, I'm not.
No, you're not. That would be a deal breaker.
You'd be very angry about that. Very angry. No, I wouldn't do that.
I don't even understand grown women doing it. Anyway, that's my opinion. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, but it is what it is. But I just kind of, and now that you bring that up, you know, I think social media really does give us a great idea of how people really are. And I don't think people in social media really realize how much it reveals about them, whether their maturation, their moderate maturation, or their immaturity.
Wow, but again, we're talking about deal breakers.
Right.
Things like that are deal breakers. It really is. And I think we really have to understand, have the honest dialogue with yourself to realize what it costs you, and then be man enough or woman enough to say this really is a deal breaker.
Right, and I mean, and it's just like if you meet a young man and he's sagging, and you feeling him and you don't meet him in the club, and then like 5 years later he's still sagging, you really can't be mad that he's still sagging, because that's what you meant.
That's what you accepted.
Right, and that's what you accepted. And now you want to change him, and really it's not whatever. I remember this one pastor, my former youth pastor, this is what he said to me. He said, when you marry somebody, you marry them as is, as if they're never going to change.
That's real talk. That is real talk.
And so you really shouldn't have, if you accepted them for where they are right here, and they play video games all day, then you really shouldn't be looking for that person to be doing anything different 5 years, because you married them where they were.
Because the time to say something has now come and gone.
Right.
Because when you should have been honest and countered that call, say, listen, I'm working every day, you playing video. What's up? That's a deal breaker.
And then he don't cook, he not cleaning.
Deal breakers.
Yeah, that's a deal breaker.
Be honest with yourself.
Yeah, be honest with yourself.
What you can handle. You got to be this tall to ride the ride. Everybody's not going to be on your same level of maturation. There comes a point in time when you really, and in fact, the truth of the matter is, if you go back in your mind and look at some of your past relationships and realize why some of them fell apart or didn't work, what you'd realize is there were some deal breakers that were there before the relationship broke up, even in its conception. And you just gave it, the benefit of the doubt. You bypassed it, and later on, that same core issue came back to be the issue that made the deal fall apart.
Right, and then we take that same mentality from relationship to relationship, and the reality of it is that we choose the same person with a different name based on our inability to dissect, to revamp, or to take away or to modify our way of the way we choose somebody, in our selecting somebody to be in our lives. If that makes sense.
It does. I remember one time I was listening to Bishop Noel Jones many years ago. He was teaching on relationships and marriage, and he said every time you go somewhere, you got your problem with this problem. Every time, and he said the reason is because you say I do to your problem. Once you said I do to it, it goes with you wherever you want to. And you have to be careful what you say I do to, because you literally co-sign on a behavior or co-sign on activities, co-sign on certain thought processes that you knew you weren't ready to, you'd never want to deal with. And now you're living with the repercussions of it. And then we look at a bigger thing. We have divorces now. We have fallout. We have children all over the place. We have, finances get stretched, deal with all these things. But the truth of the matter is, we could have been honest with ourselves up front. Say, you know what? I don't even want to do this.
Right.
This, I can't handle this behavior. And because of it, then you end up hurting yourself. And a lot of times we want to blame the person, but it's really us hurting ourselves because we just didn't want to. I love him, or I love.
And there are exceptions where you may be the person who really do the right thing, and you do ask all the right questions, and the person pretends to be something that they're not. And then ultimately, whether it's after you got married or you've been in this relationship for a long time, that you realize this person really was not the individual that you thought he or she was. Because they pretended for so long. And people will pretend to be something they are not. Why, I have no idea. But at the end of the day, I think that you have to know take responsibility for your choices, and if you know that is not something that if that little twitch in you just be like, I don't know, I would suggest that you don't go with that. If that little twitch telling you like, listen, then you just gonna have to, you fine, you this, you that, but you know what? I checked off everything, and when I finished, guess what? It said in the end, move on. That's what the result was.
And the truth of the matter, if you keep expressing your challenge with a particular behavior, and the more you express it, nothing's changing. And well, guess what? That person is not even open to hear you, open to consider your thoughts, your feelings, where you are, even to have dialogue about it. I mean, I can honestly say this. The woman that I'm with, love her to life. The truth of the matter is, I know what I got. I know the things that I love, I know what I got. The things that drive me crazy, I know what I got. And that's the truth. I mean, and the reality is, 10 years from now, I can say she did, but you know what? I knew who she was when I got it.
Right.
And that's the truth. I heard last but not least, I heard a joke about a lady picked up a snake one time, got run over by a car, and she nurtured the snake back to health. And one day she was holding the snake in her bosom, and the snake bit her. And on her last dying breath, she said, I can't believe you deceived me like this. You hurt me, and you killed me when you knew how good I was to you. And the snake looked at it and said, you knew I was a snake when you picked me up. The truth of the matter is that people are not going to change them. You have to address who they are, where they are, and understand, can you pay the cost, or is it a deal breaker? And if it's a deal breaker, do yourself a favor, save yourself some hurt, some pain, some heartache, some money, and call it a deal breaker now. Save you from going forward.
And I can guarantee that a few years later, you'll be looking back and you'll be telling God, thank you. Thank you.
Ooh, give me 5. I can think of some thank you moments. I'm gonna have it. I'm thinking. Thank you there. Hold on. Thank you there. Whoa, I forgot about that. Thank you for that one too.
Thank you. Trust me. Trust and believe. You'll be saying, thank you, Father.
Appreciate the deal breaker.
The deal breaker.
In fact, the best time to see a deal breaker is before you say I do.
Some of us learn too late. But that's another story.
All right. We good?
We're good.
You your deal broken or you solid?
I'm solid.
All right, now
Solid as
definitely.
a rock.
I'm Kieron.
I am Alexis.
And thank you for hanging out with Made Selection.
All right, bye-bye.